What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one prop stream for the Fedex St Jude Championship. Going to go through everything you guys need to know to have yourself a great Thursday. And I'll include stat averages, weather for tomorrow, also some underdog and price pick props I've entered, and even some matchups on the sports books as well. But anything on top of that you guys are curious about, feel free to let me know, and we'll deep dive that for you here during this stream. But it looks like we got Philbo down there early who says, hope I had a great time at the wedding. I did, and yeah, my buddy seemed to have a good time as well. So super stoked about that. We got Antonio in the chat, excited for the week. Parlay Llama, thank you for the kind words there as well. They got Rushing Yard, Hooves in the chat, and yeah, gonna be swampy down there. It'll be 95 degrees, super warm the entire week, and not that much wind either. So Lucas Glover and those white pants, better watch out for that swamp ass. But here in this video, guys, gotta get you guys ready for all of that exposure. I'm really sick right now, so if my throat sounds scratchy, if I cough, mute the mic a million times during this, it's because I'm not feeling the best. So I am going to try and keep this one a little bit quicker as a result. Still going to go over any bets or questions that you've got, but we're going to be very concise this time around. So it started off with these averages. So last year, this is from 2024, and over the 4 rounds, it played to a -1 scoring average. It is a par 70, so at -1.05, that is a 68.95. Birdie average was 3.86 per round, and bogey average was 2.56, which tells us, right, when you see that kind of discrepancy between the birdie and bogey averages, and then only that -1.05, means there's a lot of double bogeys around this golf course, which makes sense given that there's water in play on the 11 of the 18 holes, which is among the highest on all the PGA Tour. The fairway rate was 7.56 per round, and the green rate was only 11.27. Now, what's worth noting is that this golf course did get renovated since the last time they played it, and they have completely new greens across the golf course. And the fairways, the tees weren't changed very much. I think some of the tees were moved around to add 50 yards to it. 50-yard change, really not that big of a factor, especially because it was spread across a few different holes. The bigger change for this year, though, are going to be those green complexes, which I heard from Justin Thomas saying that he thinks it's actually going to play easier in a few years. But for right now, before the soil ends up setting in, they are bouncy and they are extremely difficult to hit. In fact, I saw a video of Hideki Matsuyama on the course for a few holes, and he was hitting iron shots that looked like they were nuked into the sky, and they were ricocheting. I mean, that's really the only word I can use for it. It's not like they were bouncing and then just hardly going over the back. It was as if they were hitting concrete or asphalt and bouncing off of these greens. So I actually think it's going to play a little bit harder this year, at least compared to the baseline from last year, because of that aspect. You have tiny greens that are only 4,500 square foot. So if they're bouncing like you're landing it on a landing carrier or, you know, a racetrack, a NASCAR track, as opposed to a fairway, then expect it to be harder to hit it closer to the hole, which would lower the birdie average, potentially make there more bogeys or worse per round, and also lower that green regulation rate. But because they did not tear up the fairways, that's the one part of the course that really is the same exact as before, that might actually go up compared to what you had the year before that. And we're going to add on top of that later. I'll give you guys some extra information. But I think strategically, not even just the golf course maybe being a little bit softer there, but also the strategy, in my opinion, is going to lead to a higher fairway average in 2025. Let's talk about the weather first. So weather for tomorrow looks completely ideal. So while the renovations might make it a little bit more difficult, I do think the weather looks perfect for tomorrow. So sub 5 miles an hour wind the entire day, wind gusts that don't get upwards of 6 to 7 miles an hour. So from that perspective, it's about as perfect as you could possibly hope for. But I don't think they're going to go super low. Like most times when we see this kind of forecast, I'd be saying, oh, let's ramp this up to -1.5, -2. Those firm greens are absolutely no joke. It's something else to add on top of it is that the rough's a little bit longer here in 2025. It was listed at 2 to 2.5 inches in 2023 and then 2024. Now it's listed at 3-inch Bermuda rough. So it was long, luscious. Scotty Scheffler and Justin Thomas both talked about it in their pressers. It said that they thought that driving accuracy was going to be extremely important. In that he actually thought, I think it was Scotty that was saying it, that he was going to lay up a lot more than usual. Let me get some water here, guys. It's a absolute battle to do this with the throat hurting, but we'll get through it as best as we possibly can. But yeah, because of the fact that you have to hit the fairways to have any chance at holding these greens, I think you're going to see more people take less than driver. And it's not just the fact that you have very long rough this time around, but also the extra firm greens, them being a little bit bouncier. Players know that they have to be coming out of the short stuff. If you're hitting out of the Bermuda grass rough, and let's say you still get it to the green, if you have no spin on it because if you're coming out of that longer stuff, then you're going to have literally 0% chance of holding that green. It's going to either land short and then bounce up onto it. That would be your way to hit a green regulation, or you're going to hit the green and you're going to end up over the back. So this golf course, I think, is going to change identity based on what we had for last year, which is why, at least at this point of the week, I've only entered 2 slips for round number 1, which we're actually going to go through both of which here on the live stream. That's not to say that I'm not going to add stuff tomorrow. In fact, there's a very good chance that I'm adding exposure tomorrow morning based on some of the averages and early play that we're seeing. But before we actually see the golf course in action, there's only so much that we can do, right? We don't know exactly how this thing's going to play. When they renovate, they change up a golf course. We try to do our best to kind of project ahead of time what's going to happen, but we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know exactly how it's going to play out. I will say that over the years, I've gone a little bit better at breaking down these golf courses. I've had, much more success on anticipating what's going to happen as I've had experience and have tracked a lot of these golf courses over the last 5 seasons. But even then, I'd say especially now, compared to like a few years ago, I know my limits. You guys have probably seen that chart where, it talks about confidence versus like how much you know in a certain topic. And the people that suck, so let's go skill way on the left and confidence will be the up and down. The people that have no idea what the fuck they're doing normally have the most confidence, right? They think they're the tough shit, all of that. I've found that as the years have gone on in doing this, and it's so true, that the more you know about golf and breaking down golf courses, the more that you know that no one knows shit when it comes to breaking them down. So the thing that I have gone much better at over the last season or two is knowing when not to play a whole bunch. And this is a classic scenario where I think you need to pick your battles. If you're going to enter some volume for round number 1, especially if it's like for the pick'em side of things, I'm talking strokes props, overs on birdies, overs on bogeys, et cetera, then limit it. Do not have a whole crap ton in right now before we actually see how this golf course plays. And I say that just before we go through some exposure here, because it's not like I went lighter unit wise. I just went with only 2 slips as opposed to maybe the 5 to 7 slips that I'm normally entering for any given slate. So tomorrow morning, I'll be up with a coffee looking at those averages, seeing exactly how it plays. If I'm right about my course lean, which I feel pretty decent about it, then I'm probably going to add a lot more exposure tomorrow morning. Let's start with the prize pick slip that I entered. So we're going to go to the PGA side and go to bogeys or worse. By the way, any sort of bets that you want me to deep dive, feel free to let me know in the chat and we'll go through those together. But I've got 4 props in particular that we're going to go through on these 2 sites, and then also some matchups towards the end. So anything on top of that, just let me know. So we're going to start with the Tony Finau fade. So I'm taking him for the over at 2.5 bogeys or worse. So we'll start with the average, which was 2.56 per round last year. I think even with the calm conditions, that those bouncy greens are going to have it stay at least the same. So I think it's going to be about 2.5 per round. That's where I have the projected field average. And I think there's a chance, at least within the range of outcomes, that the bogey average actually goes up a little bit than what we had for last year. So in that case scenario, maybe it goes to like 2.65 to like 2.75 per round. Tony Finau is number 157 on tour in the bogey avoidance category. So if you go to pgatour.com, you click on stats, you click bogey avoidance, you'll see that for Tony Finau, which is way, way worse than the field average. So if the field average is going to be 2.5 per round, maybe even 2.6, 2.7. Again, that's a little bit more speculative. That's why I'm waiting before entering a whole bunch more props. But let's say that, I end up being right and it is closer to 2.6, 2.7 per round. Then this would be pretty drastic value, because not only would the field average be above this sort of number, but you're talking about a player that's worse than the field average in the category. So give me an over on the Tony Finau bogeys. Last year, he did top 20 at this event. It is a no-cut event, so really top 20 is not that much of an accomplishment, but he's still in the top half of the field last year. He went over this line in 3 of the 4 rounds, and the one line that he went, or the one round that he went under that line, it was by 0.5. So even when he's been playing well at this course, which hasn't been every year, he only has 1 top 10 finish at TPC Southwind. Outside of that, all worse than 10th place finishes. So I'll take that on Tony at a course that doesn't really fit his game. And now let's go through this fairway line I took. So it was an over on Patrick Cantlay fairways. Or actually, did I take a decky? I have to double check on whether I took a decky or Cantlay. Golly, I really should know. Okay, it was Cantlay. Okay, I was right. I thought there was a chance I took decky. So I was looking at both of them. You can tell that the decky over in fairways is one that I like as well. In fact, I'm considering adding it at this point. But until we see the golf course in the lean, I'm probably going to hold off on it. But this over on fairways, let's talk about that. So average last year was 7.5 per round. So it was about this kind of number. Even if it doesn't go up, this line's fair because Patrick Cantlay, if you take a look at the stats for the year, is about a field average player. But let's mention the strategy aspect now. And the one thing I know about tour players is that when they're incentivized to lay up, that they will do so. And at a course of the 3-inch Bermuda rough, there's going to be a lot of rollout in the fairways. They haven't gone very much rain this week. And because the greens are going to be so bouncy, I think the fairway average is going to go up. I think it could go up to like 8 per round. And historically, if you go to 2023 and 2022, the average at this golf course was 8+ per round in both of those years. So 2024, if anything, is the outlier. When it was only 7.56 per round, that's the lowest the fairway average has really ever been at this course. So my theory in this category, right, if we mentioned this one now, is I thought bogeys are worse was going to go up. I think it was going to play a little bit harder there. I actually think the fairways are going to go up compared to last year as well, which for a category like fairways means that I think it's going to play easier in that category. So in this sort of a pick'em site where we get the credit for anti-correlation, if you took 2 fades together, that's only 2.5x. If you took 2 positive stance plays together, that's only a 2.75x payout. Because we have the over and the under, or the positive stance play and the fade together, it's a full 3x payout. So that's a little bit of speculative there with the fairway average going up, but that is something, at least if I was playing golf at this golf course, I would lay up more. Like, if I know that I'm not a professional, I played in college, played high school golf, so I know what the hell I'm doing. I'm a single-digit handicap golfer, which is far, far, far from professional, but still, I know what I'm doing more than most people on the golf course. If I was given this kind of setup, and I am shorter off the tee, so that's going to lean into it as well, I would probably hit 3-wood on every single hole. So just keep that in mind. And by the way, these players that hit it a longer way than me, they're probably even more prone to lay up because they don't have to hit it, a driver to hit it 225 through the air. I have to hit a driver to hit it that far. Most of these guys can hit an iron that far. So that's kind of what I'm thinking from that aspect. So 3x payout on the price pick side. Then let's go through an underdog slip, which I actually ended up taking this for the bet the number slip this week. So if you guys follow the bet the number blog that I do every single golf tournament, I post that for round 1, giving you guys an idea of exactly how to attack the slate. You would have already seen this slip. Now, it has bumped since I posted it over there because not only was it posted for my Patreon members first, but also for all the people on the Bet the Number blog for free. So Colin Morikawa, he was at 68.5 in even money. So I got this for 3.09x, but at 2.84x, it's not the worst payout shift that I've ever seen. I mean, I wouldn't enter it now. I am super stringent on making sure that I'm getting the best possible line. So if I know that the line was available a couple hours before at a better number, I won't do it to myself. Or I won't go out there and enter that sort of prop when that's the case. But let's say you're just entering it now. You're doing this more as like a hobby or for fun. You're just trying to get a sweat on for round number 1. Then in that case, by all means, right, play this sort of combination. I think that they're valued. There's a reason why I played those two. But if you're more so using this to grind out hardcore ROI like I am, this is my job. This is how I make my money. I know I do make some money from my Patreon page, sponsorships, YouTube, marketing, all of that kind of stuff. Vast majority of my income comes from actually betting on golf, though. Way, way more than all those avenues combined. That's why I wouldn't play it right after that sort of multiplier difference, because it doesn't seem like a very big difference. It's 0.25 unit difference from bet to bet, but 0.25 units. If you were to do that on every single bet that you were to enter, for me, for somebody that has a much higher unit size than most people watching on here, that is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by the end of the year. If you're just doing this to try and get a sweat for round 1, you're a golf fan, you just, hey, I want to bet on a couple guys and track what they do tomorrow, then by all means, enter it. I guess that's what I'm saying right there. Let's talk about the reasoning for these two. Let's go back to the green regulation average. So green average was only 11.27 per round last year. They completely recontoured the greens. So if anything, and I know wins are going to be lower than what they were for 2024, if anything, I think this average is going to stay the same, if not go down. So just like the bogey average getting a little bit harder, I think the green average might go down to like 11 per round, maybe even slightly below 11 per round, which means that Matt McNeely, who has been about a tour average green regulation percentage player, I have projecting about that sort of number. And if I think it's at best going to be 11.25 like it was last year, I think if it has a chance to go down to 11 per round, you could see why I would be on that sort of a lean. So took the under on Matt McNeely. I don't think he was like juiced towards the under or anything on the sports books, but with all those player comments and seeing those interviews today, them talking about how bouncy the golf course was, I feel pretty solid about fading the green and regulation board. In fact, that's probably my favorite category. If you're going to bet anything hard right now, like I'm okay with these other ones that we took. I'm okay even with this Colin Morikawa under. There was enough value for me to enter them. Let's put it that way, right? Like I don't just enter shit for the hell of it. I'm totally fine sitting out a slate until I see an edge to go out there and attack. But the prop category, if I was, and I haven't done it myself yet, so I do have to give that little bit of an asterisk. But if I was going to attack anything for this golf course, it'd be the under on greens, because we almost know for a fact that it's going to be hard to hit greens. I mean, when I hear tour players saying that they ricocheted off greens, I see video of Hideki hitting long iron shots that look perfect and then them ending up like 15 yards over the green. That's not like a speculative sort of thing. Like we know that's going to be a part of the golf course. That's really what I would focus on. And then the other prop I took was a way to get the payout a little bit better on this. It was over a 3x because I had the anti-correlation without that multiplier. But Morikawa, if you take a look at his sportsbook line odds, he's minus 130 towards the under. So a little bit of sportsbook line value in that direction. He also has really good course history around this course as well. So just give you guys the exact finishes. He's gone T22, T13, then T5 his last 3 years. And before that, when it was a WGC, he also had some top level finishes as well. So that's the kind of player, I think if you're going to take a positive stance play, you do it on an elite tier guy to shoot -2. And yeah, that's what I'm doing for my round one exposure. Again, I'm not overexposing myself. I'm not pushing it too far. We only know so much about these golf courses ahead of time. And, I think if you're somebody that maybe isn't as plugged into golf for round one, maybe you don't have those sort of narratives or leans that you're going with, I might even sit out the slate entirely. Like it's just, I think the prudent move, and it's not always the sexy move. We like to have fun. We like to enter as many props as we can whenever we, find an edge and whatnot. But the more and more experience that you have in this space, the more and more you're going to learn to just kind of take a step back at times. So that's all I've got for the slate on the pick'em side of things. Let's go through these matchups, and then I'm going to open it up to questions before we wrap it up. So for the matchups, I'm taking these three. And on the Hard Rock Bet app, they are slightly different odds. They do have the market with a tie on there, which is what I entered at first. But one of my Patreon members actually found this on Hard Rock Bet. There's a way to find the market without a tie, but you have to go through like hoops to find it. In fact, I literally hadn't seen that until today. By the way, and if you're on Hard Rock Bet, I'll give you guys the goods on how to find it right now. I'm going to do it on Hard Rock Bet just so I can give you guys the exact directions, because it's way, way harder than you would think. I mean, I've been using the app in the sportsbook for a year now, and I still hadn't seen it. So you go to the FedEx St Jude Championship. So like you click it, it brings up like the normal app. You scroll to the right where it says head to head, which is the furthest right category, which I don't know if you can actually see it on the screen, but it's that furthest right category that you see right there. And then you click on one of their names. When you click on one of their names, it takes it to a completely different screen where at the top, they have the same odds. Those are the ones with the tie. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. I don't know if it's showing up on the live stream or not on the camera. But if you click on the one under it, you get the one without a tie. I had no idea if you clicked on their names, not just the bet on the page before, that it brought up all of these extra matchups and whatnot. So if you're on Hard Rock Bet and you want to enter these, you can actually tail them, which I had no idea we were able to do before. So shout out to my Patreon member. I think his name was Tyler that gave me that information. But yeah, these are the three matchups I like for round one. So it's Fleetwood versus Spawn. Give me Fleetwood as an elite course fit. JJ Spawn's a pretty good course fit too, but Tommy Fleetwood's just playing much better golf at this point ever since Spawn won the Open. And then you have Morikawa versus Taylor. Morikawa's just clearly the better player between the two. You are taking slightly more juice on that at minus 150, but good course fit as well. Not to say that Nick Taylor's a bad course fit, because he's not, but just that Morikawa, just like the first matchup, he's the better form player. And then the last matchup as well, it's two decent course fits. It's crazy how that works out, right? They have all the similar type of players playing together. But Berger, his course history at this event, he's made 4 of his 5 cuts. He's got 2 wins, a 5th place finish, and a 2nd place finish in his 5 starts. So he's 4 out of 5 for top 5 finishes. He's 2 out of 5 for getting the wins at TPC Southwind. And Ryan Gerard, it's either his 2nd time playing or it's his 1st time playing at this sort of golf course. So, experience on one versus no experience on the other. And then 2 pretty big talent gap differences with the first 2. So you can enter them for a little parlay if you wanted to, especially because they're all minus money odds. But I also played them for half unit straight bets on the Hard Rock Bet side of things. Let's catch up on chat, see if there's any bets that you guys want us to deep dive. And if not, we're going to hop on out of here. Because like I said, I am sick like a dog right now. I'm trying to tough it out a bit. And I think the less I talk, the better in shape I'll be for the next few days. Because as you guys know, if you guys are just joining this for the first time here with us on live, we do live streams for rounds 2 through 4 as well. So showdown for rounds 2 through 4 and for props and betting. So I've got to save my voice a little bit over the next few days. You've got the Summer Bug 2, It Sucks. Yeah, I got it at the wedding. My mom actually had it too. She wasn't even at the wedding. I haven't seen her in like a month. So I didn't get it from her, and I have the same exact illness. So definitely going around Florida, just about everyone seemingly seems to be sick. He said they should have a tournament on asphalt. They have a tournament in the Middle East that's played on sand greens. I don't know if you guys knew that. Most greens, like it sounds, are green. But in the Middle East, parts of the world where they don't have a lot of irrigation or as accessible irrigation, like it's used for drinking in a lot of places where you don't have as much water, they have sand greens. Like you literally putt on sand and then you rake it afterwards to make it super flat. It would be fun to see that kind of a golf tournament. And hey, even if it's just the sand greens, that'd be a lot of fun. He's like, green tea and honey, brother. Okay, you're saying that's going to do wonders for the throat? Yeah, I'll consider that. I mostly just going to have some ginger ale. It's usually good for the sore throats and the bad stomachs. He said also took the over on Grazeman and Spieth on strokes. See, a faded Spieth, not my favorite, I'll say on that one, but the Grazeman fade I can get behind. Only reason I'm giving you shit on the Jordan Spieth one is he's my favorite player. So never like to see people fading my dude. He said thoughts on English for the Underdog rivals. Yeah, didn't know they had rivals up. So let's take a look at that one. In fact, we'll see if there's any other ones that really catch our eye as well. And you wanted my take on specifically which one? Let's see. You wanted the English one? So who's English playing against? So he's going against Sanjay M. Yeah, I mean, Sanjay's been in terrible form, so you'd have to think that Harris would be, the play between those two. In fact, I even think like the course history might favor Harris English over Sanjay M there. I don't know if I can get there myself because Sanjay has shown us some, semblances of form. I mean, he had first 2 rounds last week where he was amazing. He was 2nd in the field in total score. The week before that, he had 3 really good rounds as well. I'm okay with it. I'm only going to give you that slight pushback, give you that devil's advocate kind of take of him looking a little bit better just because there is a chance that he could still win tomorrow. But yeah, on a 50-50 prop, Harris English would be the lean on that one for sure. How far down would I consider going with the without Scotty market? As far as you'd like, right? If you're talking about some guys that are 100, 150 to 1 without Scotty, I'd be okay doing that if it's the right player. I personally haven't bet any on that market, but I would go down the whole way if you need to. Like it's the sort of event where we've had a lot of surprise winners. We've had Glover winning. And before that, especially like 4 or 5 years ago when this was a WGC, we had some really weird champions at this golf course. It's a signature level field, top 70 playing. So you normally get a top level guy winning, but this kind of golf course, I think you could see more of a surprise guy getting the job done. You're looking at Wyndham for the over on 4 birdies. I don't know if that's my favorite bet, Antonio. Honestly, overs on birdies at a golf course that was renovated just feels like a little bit of a red flag. I think it could play a little bit harder than what it has for the last few years. So yeah, maybe not my favorite lean. Illini says, do I expect round 1 to play tougher than it played the last couple of years? Yes, and I gave my full thoughts on that before, so if you want my full take on the course, you can listen to that. Hearing my reasoning on the green props as context, but curious why Goddard up top 5 in greens has no multiplier in Underdog when other guys that are lower statistically have different multipliers. So this is just my guess, right? Because, I mean, I don't work for the sports books. I don't have a crystal ball that tell you exactly what they're thinking. But if I had to like put 2 plus 2 together and give you a guess, maybe the ball flight, he hits the ball low. He's somebody that doesn't, have that high ball flight like a lot of other players do. I'd have to see exactly which ones have the better multiplier on them, but I'm assuming that they're higher ball flight guys that are not only good at hitting greens, but that launch the ball high enough to hold these green complexes. That's just my guess. The other thing would be is maybe the off the tee aspect. This is a layup course. This is more positional, and he's not a positional player. He's one of the worst fairway percentage players that we have on the PGA Tour. In fact, maybe something like that. What are my thoughts on Fleetwood for the over on fairways? If it goes up to the 8 per round average, I'm okay with that. But again, there's just so much we don't know at this point. So yeah, I would lean on the over, but I wouldn't use that with any sort of confidence. What are my opinions on Spieth for the over matchup versus Campbell, or the Minwoo over versus Hoagie? So I'll give you my 2 cents on the matchup board. And this is something I always say when somebody brings up a matchup. So I'm not picking on you in particular here, but when they have these 0.5s on them, it kind of takes away any sort of value that you could possibly have. Because if you don't know how it works with these 0.5 matchups, if they tie the under hits. So for example, if Minwoo Lee ends up with the same amount of birdies as Tom Hoagie, then Tom Hoagie in the under is going to be what hits. And by the way, if you took them for the over, you would lose that bet, right? It would not be a push if they end up tying. Same thing with this Jordan Spieth prop, right? If he ties Campbell, Campbell's going to be the side that wins. What's worth noting, and this is very obvious with these two players, is Minwoo and Jordan Spieth are the better birdie makers. No one would ever contest that between those two. But you have to ask yourself is there more than a 0.5 birdie difference between those two? And then even if there is, let's say it's like a 0.55 birdie difference, is that 0.05 birdie edge a big enough edge to actually take it on these prop sites? Because these aren't true 50-50 props, right? You're not getting plus 100 implied odds on these. You're getting closer to minus 130, minus 135 implied odds. Depends on how many legs you're taking. Whether you're flexing it or doing a power play. It's too much for this live stream to really add on top of that right there. But if let's say that it's like a 0.55 difference birdie projection between these kind of players, then that 0.05 after the 0.5 difference is nowhere near a big enough edge to warrant taking it on a site like Underdog and Prize Picks. So what we normally do on this live stream when we look at the birdie or better matchup board, and I already did it, I didn't see any that really made sense for it this week. So unfortunate that I don't see that much value on these like 9 or 10 that they have up here, but it's the unders that normally have the value. And what we look for when we're looking at this birdie or better matchups for unders are guys that are this verse that have the same, if not a higher birdie percentage than the guys that they're going against. And I've already done it for the entire board. I've already gone through the whole thing. There's not an example of that. But when that's the case, right, when this guy that's the quote unquote opponent is the better player, these are some of the best props that you can take because all they have to do is tie the other player, which, by the way, for a birdie line where most guys are making between 2 to 6 per round, pushes are extremely, extremely common between these birdie or better matchups. That makes it such a good prop in terms of your long-term EV. So yeah, probably not my favorite with those two. Brian Campbell doesn't make a lot of birdies. Jordan does. So yeah, I love my guy Jordan. So maybe I would lean on him if you had to choose one of those two. But this Minwoo versus Tom Hoagie one is way too close to a 50-50 for me to personally want to play that kind of one. So I would stay away from that one. Maybe consider the Jordan Spieth over, but even then, not sure that there's a ton of value on that prop. He said, thanks, Luke. He said, feel better and let's have a week, of course. He said, fade Keegan and Fleetwood at 11.5 greens. They're both even money, you're saying? Both below average in that category. Then you paired it with Decky over fairways. So yeah, I mean, I like the unders on greens for just about every single player. The only one out of those two that I'm slightly sketchy on would be the Fleetwood one. And that's just because Fleetwood's such an elite course fit around this kind of track. I mean, hit fairways, hit greens. That's the Tommy Fleetwood method. He does that every single week on tour. It's why he's one of the most consistent players that we've ever seen in tour history. And that's not an exaggeration. Tommy Fleetwood, if he doesn't win a tour event, will be considered for the Hall of Fame at least somewhat because of his top 10 and top 20 percentage. It's up there with guys like Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, Tiger Woods. It's not quite at that same level, but it's damn close to it for his top 10, his top 20 percentage. So I give a lot of respect for Tommy for that, right? Winning is what people remember. So until he does that, he won't be the shoe-in for that Hall of Fame conversation. But I'm telling you right now, if he does that for the next 5 to 10 years, that there's a chance that he's at least talked about for the Hall of Fame. He probably won't get in. Everyone in the Tour Hall of Fame has at least a couple wins, I believe, but it would be a heck of an argument if he doesn't have any and he still has one of the best top 20 rates of all time. It's like, how do you parse that, right? One of the most consistent best ball strikers of all time, but just couldn't get into that winner circle. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck with everything that you guys are entering. For every single slip that I'm entering, you guys can find those on my Patreon page. I post every single slip as I enter them over there, which including for tomorrow after we get the averages, you're likely going to see quite a few props that I'm going with. So I'll be reacting to the prop averages as they come in. I'm always staying on top of that stuff during the morning wave. One of my favorite things to do with golf betting is to grab a coffee at like 8, maybe like 8:30 a.m. and sit there for the first couple hours, track hole by hole stuff, look at pin locations, see exactly how it's going. Because I mentioned we don't know a whole lot in this golf space about golf course setup. And that's by design, right? They don't tell us where they're putting all the tee boxes ahead of time. Golf courses figuring out exactly how their play can be a really tough thing. But you know what the beauty is of entering props after the round starts? There's a lot less guesswork. There can still be some guesswork because the weather can change on you. That's happened to me before. Don't want to talk about it. Weather forecast, weathermen in general are the bane of my existence of times. But barring a really big weather flip that isn't expected, after the play starts and we see exactly how the golf course is set up, those are by far the best EV props that you can enter. And the sportsbooks have gone a little bit better to kind of adjust for that as play comes in, but there's still quite a big delay that they have on that. Like we'll see the first, 2 hours of play at times, there'll be no line movement on the sportsbooks. That's the time to attack. Not so much after the sportsbooks start to adjust their lines. You want to catch it before the sportsbooks start to kind of get a semblance for what's going on. So join the Patreon page for that, all of the extra exposure that I'm entering. But I also post all the stat averages for these events over there. And we will have some live golf stuff throughout the weekend as well. So live golf doesn't start till Friday, but they're playing in Chicago this week. So I'll be posting some stat averages for that golf course throughout the event, as well as Underdog and Prize Picks props that I'm taking on that side. But until round 2, that's all for the round 1 live stream. And I'll catch you guys for all the content throughout the rest of the weekend.